Here are the top stories for today, January 20, 2021. Government officials inspect the cold storage facilities in Biñan, Laguna. President Rodrigo Duterte backs the termination of the UP-DND Accord. Ilocos Norte suspends home quarantine for returning overseas Pinoys. And Japan says vaccination is not required for Olympic Games participants. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. inspected a cold storage facility in Biñan, Laguna this morning. It is in preparation for the arrival of COVID-19 vaccines in the country. Unilab Director Albert Alan Alcruz explains to Health Secretary Duque and vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. the process of storing COVID-19 vaccines once the jabs become available. Alcruz said Unilab's cold storage facility can accommodate 5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines at any one time while maintaining the temperature at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. He said the total number of doses that can be accommodated in a month will depend on how long the vaccines need to be stored in the warehouse before they are transferred to the vaccine sites. The move to scrap the agreement between the University of the Philippines and the Department of National Defense gets a backing from President Rodrigo Duterte. The said agreement bars police and military inside the campuses of UP. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana announced his decision to terminate the DND-UP agreement signed on June 30, 1989, as he believed that UP has become the breeding ground for communist rebels.
Si Secretary Lorenzana po is an alter ego of the President. Of course, the President supports the decision of Secretary Lorenzana. Pero personally po, ako po ay 15 taon nagturo, 10 taon nag-aral sa UP. Yung 25 years ko po sa UP, hindi ko po naranasan na nandun ng pulis. Pero tingin ko naman, nung pag-aaral ko sa abroad, wala naman pong special police sa mga campuses sa Amerika at sa Inglaterra at lahat po sila isakop din ng mga pulis at Inglaterra sa mga lugar na yon. Pero pagdating sa controversy rin nito, kinakailangan po ang pakinggan natin ang UP President, si President Danilo Concepcion. So lahat po yung mga damdamin ng mga alumni gaya ko, I think it will be expressed by President Danilo Concepcion.
Several lawmakers are urging the Department of National Defense to reconsider its decision in abrogating the UP-DND Accord, while some say the termination of the pact was long overdue. Marita Moay has the details.
Deputy Speaker Rufus Rodriguez urged the Department of National Defense to reconsider its decision in unilaterally abrogating its agreement with the University of the Philippines on the entry and operation of the military and the police in UP campuses. Rodriguez said the unilateral decision sends a chilling effect on the exercise of the constitutionally guaranteed rights of academic freedom, freedom of speech, and freedom of assembly, which have thrived in UP, as it will breed mistrust in the government and its uniformed forces. He said the scrapping of the agreement could drive political dissenters into extremism. Meanwhile, Muntinlupa City Representative Rufi Biazon said the unilateral termination of the UP-DND Accord will provide a basis for the armed forces and police to be seen as the enemy of the institution and the youth. He said the DND should enter into a dialogue with the UP leadership in countering the recruitment of the youth to the armed struggle, while at the same time maintaining the university as a haven for academic freedom. For Anak Kalusugan Party List Representative Michael Defensor, he said he is hoping that Camp Aguinaldo will come to realize that it just created a problem where there used to be none. He said UP does not need any protection from the military. He said any unwanted military presence in UP or in any higher institution of learning for that matter is bound to constitute an invasion of academic freedom. But for Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, said the move of the DND was long overdue. He said the government was fooled by the CPP-NPA-NDF in the last 31 years through that agreement. And for Senator Panfilo Lacson, the recent move of the security sector made sense, considering that communist recruitment has reportedly occurred not only in UP but also in other state universities and colleges. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muahe.
The Hands Off Our Children movement support the termination of the UP-DND Accord, saying there is no reason to restrict law enforcement officers inside the school premises. The advocacy group is composed of parents of student activists who were reportedly recruited by militant groups. Gemma Labsan, who is the current chairperson of the movement, said the campus may or may not be aware of the deceitful activities of the CPP-NPA-NDF inside their premises, but it is their utmost responsibility to look into this and provide safety to their students and educators. She said the group is hoping that the campus administration will cooperate in protecting and nurturing our youth and making the campus a safe place for children. Multisectoral groups expressed support for the termination of the UP-DND Accord of 1989. They said the move will put a stop to issues of recruitment of students into the armed movement. The groups, composed of 6 multisectoral organizations and coalitions, said the termination should be regarded as part of cleansing the bad images of the UP campus, such as the linkages of various youth organizations to the Communist Party of the Philippines. According to them, UP has been known to be infested by rebels whose utmost priority is to overthrow the government. They lamented that most parents perceive the UP campus as a place of chaos, rallies, and boycott. The groups believe that the termination of the UP-DND Accord could put an end to the recruitment of youth who joined the CPP and its armed wing, the New People's Army. The group also appealed to the government to scrap other pacts forged with other schools. State Solicitor Gabriel Villanueva said academic freedom is not in any way curtailed with the termination of the almost 31-year-old UP-DND Accord, which bars military and police from entering UP campuses. Here is our report.
State Solicitor Gabriel Villanueva said academic freedom is protected by the Constitution and UP is still free even in the absence of such agreement. Villanueva, who is also the spokesperson of the Office of the Solicitor General for the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict or NTF-ELCAC, said the termination or abrogation of the agreement will only remove the prior notice requirement to the President, Chancellor, or Dean of the regional unit concerned before a search or arrest warrant may be served on any student, faculty, or employee of UP. He assured that peaceful protests and assemblies can still be held despite the termination of the agreement. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Laid Kabagani.
NTF-ELCAC spokesperson and PCOO Undersecretary Lorraine Marie Badoy said there is nothing irregular with the decision of the Department of National Defense about the unilateral termination of the UP-DND Accord. Badoy said the agreement was a mere courtesy extended to UP in 1989 by the DND when the country was still unaware of the university being the center of gravity of the CPP-NPA. She also said that inside the walls of UP is the outage of the continuous churning of communist propaganda to bring this country down and the deceptive recruitment of our children into this terrorist organization. Badoy said the ending of the agreement has nothing to do with academic freedom and everything to do with the protection of the country's children and the defense of the Philippines. Still to come, Metro Cebu is set to receive their COVID-19 vaccines next month. And Ilocos Norte suspends home quarantine for returning overseas Pinoys. More on this when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap. at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar said the government welcomes constructive criticisms as a gesture of recognizing the freedom of the press. During a brief engagement with the officials of the Cebu Federation of Beat Journalists, Andanar said that the Duterte administration maintains its good relation with the private media. He also underscored the vital role of media practitioners in shaping the awareness of the public on the thrust and priorities of the government. He said the PCOO will push for the legislation of the Media Workers Welfare Bill, which seeks to address the vulnerabilities of media workers by providing them security and protection. He also vowed to uplift their economic welfare, benefits, and skills. Andanar is in Cebu for a series of engagements under its Laging Handa communications campaign. Residents in Metro Cebu can expect to receive their vaccines on the 3rd or 4th week of February. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar said Metro Cebu, along with other metropolitan areas such as the National Capital Region and Metro Davao that have high COVID-19 attack rate, is listed for the vaccination rollout. Andanar said healthcare workers, senior citizens, and indigents will be prioritized. He said the PCOO will continue to operate the Laging Handa information and communications campaign to assure the public that the Duterte administration is on top of the COVID-19 situation. Meanwhile, Mandaue City Mayor Jonas Cortez thanked President Duterte for sending the PCOO team to Cebu to educate them about the national plan in addressing the COVID-19 crisis. Cortez called for collaboration and cooperation among government and private entities for effective interventions against the deadly virus. Ilocos Norte has indefinitely suspended home quarantine protocols for returning overseas Filipinos due to the recent detection of the new coronavirus variant in the country. In a public advisory, the provincial government announced that returning Filipinos will not be allowed to quarantine at home unless they present a certificate showing they have completed a 14-day facility-based quarantine. Dr. Norman Rabago, provincial health consultant, said this is another strategy to protect local residents from contracting the new variant of coronavirus. Provincial Quarantine Facility Consultant Dr. Rina Corpo said Ilocos Norte maintains at least 6 quarantine facilities and isolation units that cater to returning residents who can no longer be accommodated by their respective local government units. The Department of Agriculture welcomes the declaration of the World Organization for Animal Health, or OIE, that the Philippines is now free of the H5N6 strain of the avian influenza or bird flu. The OIE's declaration came from the Department of Agriculture Bureau of Animal Industry report that showed the affected farms no longer have evidence of the presence of the AI virus. Agriculture Secretary William Dar underscored the efforts of the Bureau of the Animal Industry as well as the swift actions of the affected local government units such as Pampanga and Rizal. Last year, the DA-BAI confirmed the recurrence of AH5N6 in a commercial layer farm in Pampanga and in Taytay, Rizal. The DA-BAI reminds poultry farmers and industry stakeholders to remain vigilant and report any unusual mortalities to their respective farm veterinarians or nearest government veterinary or agriculture office. In our business news, the Department of Trade and Industry, in partnership with the Department of Agriculture, has filed charges against 60 traders who violated the Republic Act 7581 or the Price Act. DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez said the two agencies have been partnering to bust profiteering groups taking advantage of the many restrictions implemented during the quarantine period. They also recorded 31 traders with show cause order and 274 that violated trade laws. Lopez wants middlemen traders who sell basic goods at higher prices to be punished by law. He said that they want to involve the security sector in the food sufficiency campaign. Illegal price manipulation under the Price Act has a penalty of imprisonment of not less than 5 years nor more than 15 years. On the other hand, violation of price ceiling or pricing beyond the suggested retail price or SRP will be penalized with imprisonment for a period of not less than 1 year or more than 10 years. Malacanang says the government has readied immediate and medium-term solutions to help tame the increase in prices of food items. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque gave the assurance as prices of agricultural products and other food items remain high despite a price freeze amid the COVID-19 pandemic. To prevent higher market prices, Roque said the DA would allow more pork imports from parts of Visayas and Mindanao that are free from African swine fever. Roque said the government would also ramp up the implementation of suggested retail prices on fruits and vegetables and intensify production. The government would also expand the Kadiwa ni Ani at Kita, a government project that aims to establish a direct link between consumers and the farmers and fisherfolk. Medium-term solutions include the expansion of aquaculture and the conduct of joint fishing of commercial and municipal fisherfolk. Up next, Japan says vaccination is not required for Olympic Games participants. And let us get to know the 12-year-old girl in Camiguin who spearheaded a coral restoration project in their province. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng coronavirus disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The Duterte government is now a step closer to promoting the rights and providing additional benefits to media workers. Communications Secretary Martin Andanar issued the statement as he welcomed the approval of the proposed Media Workers Welfare Act on third and final reading at the House of Representatives. He said, like the Freedom of Information and the Presidential Task Force on Media Security, the proposed measure would help further achieve President Duterte's goal of protecting and promoting the welfare of media workers. The proposed Media Workers Welfare Act seeks to ensure that media workers shall be paid the wages, allowances, and benefits provided by law to workers. The bill likewise guarantees security of tenure to media workers after the probationary work period of 6 months of continuous work. The Labor Department is also mandated to create a news media tripartite council that will settle the concerns of media workers and companies. In sports, a waiting game ensues as to when the national athletes can finally begin their training for the 31st Southeast Asian Games set to be held in Hanoi, Vietnam this year. The Philippine Sports Institute National Training Director Mark Velasco said the Philippine Olympic Committee and Chef de Mission Mon Fernandez is working to get clearance from the interagency task force. Velasco said a build-up for a certain major event usually takes up to 21 weeks or about 5 months. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Velasco expects the SEA Games build-up to be longer. Velasco also said the SEA Games training is still subject to changes depending on the health situation. Currently, the IATF has allowed national athletes from 4 sports to train inside the Inspire Sports Academy in Calamba for various international competitions. Japan said vaccination is not a requirement for participating in the Olympic Games, which were delayed last year due to the pandemic. Chief Cabinet Secretary Katsunobu Kato said they are considering comprehensive measures to hold safe and secure games even without making vaccines a condition. The government of Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga is firm to go ahead with the Olympics and Paralympics to be held from late July through early September. The Tokyo Olympics is estimated to cost $15.8 billion. In recent months, Japan has witnessed surges in COVID-19 infections, mostly in Tokyo, where the Games are scheduled to be held. Suga's government imposed a state of emergency once again in several provinces to allow central and local authorities to handle the pandemic. Several local government units in the Cordillera region have decided to call off or postpone their annual festival scheduled in February. Sagada Mayor James Puten Jr. announced the cancellation of the annual Etag Festival that is set from January 30 to February 4. This was decided upon the recommendation of the Municipal Council to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. Benguet's capital town of La Trinidad also canceled the 2021 annual Strawberry Festival. Kalinga Province also announced a suspension of their 5th Bodong Festival, which coincides with their foundation anniversary every February 14. Meanwhile, the Baguio City government announced that the Flower Festival, or Panangbenga, is postponed to a later date. The month-long festival, which is among the top crowd-drawing events in the country, will be rescheduled after an assessment based on the developments of the COVID-19 pandemic. Saving the environment takes priority even amidst a pandemic. A 12-year-old girl from Camiguin proves this as she raises funds for the restoration of corals in her province. Sofia Pardo began her environmental advocacy when she was just 10 years of age as a graduating student of the International Baccalaureate Primary Years program. She said there was no question about her love for Mother Nature. Sofia worked alongside the Sangkalikasan Producers Cooperative, or SPC, to fund the planting of massive corals to preserve reef biodiversity. Among those who answered Sofia's fundraising call was the Discovery Leisure Company as well as several private individuals. The restoration project, led by SPC, started as early as 2013. SPC trained and transferred the technology of coral asexual reproduction to multiple local communities around the country. The COVID-19 pandemic cut the experiment short from 1 year to just 4 months, but it has proven to be successful. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Government officials inspect the cold storage facilities in Biñan, Laguna. President Rodrigo Duterte backs the termination of the UP-DND Accord. Ilocos Norte suspends home quarantine for returning overseas Pinoys. And Japan says vaccination is not required for Olympic Games participants. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day.